Lovely, warm welcome, everyone. Very happy to be here for yet another session of Once Upon a Leader, Timeless Stories, Modern Leadership Choices. This series is a space where we slow down for a moment and think differently about leadership, not through frameworks or slides or anything, but we look at stories. We've looked at Ekalavya in the last session, and we've looked at, I'm forgetting which one was the first one. So we've looked at a few other stories. This is the third one in the series. The idea is to look at the story and learn from it. I want to call out that history, mythology, we will always have multiple versions. And just a request that totally understand if there is another version that you are aware of, please bring it to the conversation. Let's talk about the other versions that you're aware of. But the idea is not to evaluate the story as a right story, wrong story. Is the story that is being discussed, is it the right one, or history says something else, book says something else? That's not the idea of this session at all. It is more about self-reflection. What can we learn from the story? It's not going to be a lecture. It's not going to be about right or wrong. It's a reflective space where we pause, discuss, and notice what the story reveals about our own leadership. What's working, what isn't, what habits are serving us, which ones might be holding us back. That's the whole intent. Yeah. So yeah, now I remember. Vision we did with Ashoka's story. Apologies, there is a flight going by. Then we looked at responsibility of power through Ekalavya's story. And we are here today to look at a story from Greek mythology, the story of Sisyphus. It's the story of a king who was condemned to push a big boulder up a hill for eternity. Some of you might be aware, for some of you it might be new. Let's explore what was. Yeah. Before we move on, I will request Ishita Asavri, whosoever, to put the list of upcoming programs that DWS has planned in the chat for people to know. But let's continue with the session. So I will start. Anybody here who has already heard the story in detail about Sisyphus before I start narrating?
Not me.
All right, so let's start with the story. So, in the ancient Greek mythology world, there lived a king. His name was Sisyphus. He was not an ordinary king. He was very sharp, very strategic, yet restless. He was a king who believed that intelligence could bend reality, and a lot is possible just by your cognitive ability. When death came for him, Sisyphus did something really unthinkable. He did not plead. He did not surrender, but he chose to use his brains and wits to outwit death. Through, to me, it appears his cunningness and deception, he trapped death itself, binding it in chains and suspending the natural order of the world, which meant that for a brief period, eerie stretch of time, no one died. Battles were fought without any consequence because a knife, a sword goes through you, you get up and you continue fighting. The sick did not die. The sickness lingered, the old did not pass on. Life continued, but without an ending, without a change, without anything progressing. The world fell into a very unnatural stillness, as if time itself has lost its rhythm, movement. What first seemed like victory to many in terms of what Sisyphus had achieved slowly started to reveal itself as an imbalance. Without death, meaning frayed, there was no urgency, so all urgency dissolved. The delicate cycle that gave life its weight was broken. The Greek gods watched Sisyphus, the entrapment of death, in silence for a while. They agreed that cleverness has its place. It can solve problems, bend odds, even delay consequences, but defiance was something that they looked upon as disruption and made a decision that disruption cannot be rewarded. So when death was finally released, order was restored. The gods rendered their judgment. The judgment was that Sisyphus would not be struck down, would not die, basically. He would not be erased. Instead, he would be taught a lesson, not very strategic, nothing intelligent, no manipulation, nothing that he could do to escape. And it was something that was absolutely inevitable. The consequence of was not cruel. It was not to trouble him. And the lesson was not just delivered once, but it was repeated again and again. His punishment was very simple, and we all know the punishment that he had to take an enormous boulder, roll it up a hill, rough, heavy, very indifferent. And as soon as he pushed it to the top, the boulder would roll down, and he had to come back all over again and start the process again of pushing the boulder all the way back up to the top. As he would near the summit, just as he could see the peak inside, the stone would slip, it would tumble, it will come down crashing, and he has to do this for eternity. So here is the myth does not describe him screaming, complaining. It does not describe him collapsing in despair, not agreeing to God. He just follows the instruction. He just keeps on doing the same again and again. So here is where I will ask a couple of questions. In fact, before I get into the reflective question, a philosopher, Albert, getting his last, Camus, if I'm not wrong, Albert Camus, yes, Camus. He revisited this myth, and he offered a very radical interpretation to what Sisyphus did, that continuous pushing up the boulder. He said perhaps the punishment was not the stone. Perhaps the real question was whether Sisyphus could choose a response. Could he choose not to walk down? Could he choose not to push up the boulder? Could he choose another alternative to his response to what the gods had asked? That I thought was very interesting, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit. What choices do we have as leaders? So just think about it. Imagine a moment where he walks down the hill after the rock falls down, and he says, I don't want to push it back up for eternity. I'm going to do something else. The story would have looked very different, and our interpretation of the story itself would have looked very, very. So here I want to put on that leadership lens and ask you, if gods were watching us today, what we do, and we were Sisyphus, what might the gods be wondering about us? What are we doing repeatedly in a loop that gods are silently watching us?
Repeat that question once more.
Yeah. So if we were Sisyphus and gods were watching us do something repeatedly over and over again, what are they thinking? Go ahead, Akan.
So a very probably not a very intellectual answer here. Probably when we are scrolling our phone again and again, so the gods must be watching us and thinking that what are you gaining from this doomsday scrolling that you're doing? What are you gaining from this? So I think that came to my head because we are trapped in this Instagram, YouTube shorts, and everything that is there. We are trapped in it without gaining any knowledge or without any change of outcome after that. It's a doom scrolling that we are doing aimlessly.
Absolutely. So, yeah, probably gods are wondering what's the outcome you are getting out of it. Wonderful. What else?
This question reminded me of the things that we do, especially as a woman. Most women have the habit of overgiving without filling up their own jar. But that also reminds me of the story of Kakujandi, where he has witnessed Ramayana 11 times, and I don't know how many times, where he have seen the same thing happening, maybe through different characters, some modifications, but the end goal is just the same. So yeah, probably we also do the same thing. We decide that we won't do overgiving, overthinking and all, but then end up doing it in some way or the other. And God is like, oh my God, it's so difficult to make them understand.
Yeah, they know the outcome and they continue to repeat it again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why aren't they choosing something different? Very nice. Would love to see others on camera, those who can turn it on and just unmute and speak. What would gods be wondering when they saw us do things over and over again?
And there are many, in my mind, there are many perspectives to it. First is, I hope that they are not expecting a different outcome by engaging in the same process. But then again, even to arrive at a due process, you still need to do the same thing to know that it's not working. So probably they're at the cusp of something better, of discovering
maybe
something.
They are waiting that this time maybe humans realize that it's not fruitful and they'll try. Maybe they are hopeful, possible. Lovely perspective. All right, let's move on. So in Sisyphus's story, Sisyphus trapped death. Yeah. If you named death in your leadership journey, what is death? What is death in your leadership journey? So what I want to ask is, what is it that you want to capture, hold, not let go, not allow it to do what it is supposed to do? What is it that you're holding back? Hi, Shobha, Varkis, Lionel, Aditya, welcome.
Probably the fear of failure would be one thing that I could get maybe trapped.
Tell me more. Why is that mapping to death in your?
So when we are like okay, I'll fail. And then we don't want to try anything new because we are afraid of that failure. And here I am speaking for myself when I say we also. So it is probably that I might fail. So I would like to trap that yes, I will not fail. But then now if I think back on it, if I don't fail, I may not learn any. If every time I succeed in whatever I do, I will be like, yes, I will succeed no matter what happens. So I might not try anything different, might not try anything new. That yes, everything is going to work out anyways. So I don't need to think about it.
Absolutely. And there's a beautiful quote that says, if you find somebody who's never failed, note that they've not tried any
New.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that could be similar to death in your head. That if I fail, what will happen, and hence the consequences are holding you back and wanting to trap that failure. Let it not take its due course. Let it not live its life. Thank you for the share.
Thank you.
What else? Who else? What are you trying to avoid?
In my mind, I think it will take like comfort zone and also perfectionism. Like I want to be perfect in everything, and there should be a comfort zone into that. So it will be
Want
a death.
perfection with comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we seeing the paradox here? I want comfort and perfect. Absolute. Yeah, Rashmi, go ahead.
There's a surprising thought with this because in the last session with Mr. Krishna, I realized that the answer to all the questions of leadership in family and organization, both roles were quite similar. While in this, when I'm thinking of an answer, my answers are very different for the death in family leadership scenario and in organizational leadership, which is quite a surprising fact for me. For example, I am thinking of family and I feel like I am expressing a lot, and that is causing me to appear needy. Whereas in organization scenario, I feel I'm not asking enough from people, which is quite contrast. I'm doing everything myself.
Yeah.
So just something interesting in my own.
That's touching for you. Yeah. So just going back to the Sisyphus story, Rashmi, for you, and correct me if my understanding is wrong. The balance between how much should I share, how much should I ask for, seems to be something that's worrying you.
Yes, I'm surprised with how they are opposites and they are manifesting in leadership roles, just
Yeah.
in different locations.
Yeah, and I could see Ishita nod and give a thumbs up. It seems that thought resonates with Ishita a lot. Any
So
other?
agree. Apart from that, the only similar thing in a professional and a personal life, at least for me and many others I know of, would be just giving up. Would be named as death. When we just term it, I can't do this. That looks like we are calling it. Okay, nothing new can be done, and nothing else can be tried.
Any big hairy problem that we are trying to avoid, yeah, be it putting ourselves out there on social media or making that big presentation proposal to the senior leaders, or bungee jumping. Why should it only be work related? It can be things that we are putting off for someday. And we all know that someday doesn't come. It always stays an imagined day. Any other thoughts before we move to the next question? Anybody wants to share what are they avoiding in their life? What's paralleling death for them, right?
Shanti Varghese here. I was little late to join this meeting. And so I don't
Know the
know.
context.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw the context, but still, from what people have been talking, that's why I was little delaying myself to answer. One thing that I've remember is these days, as a leader, the the very thought of leading Gen Z is a death trap, if you ask me. Because right now I manage close to 60 odd employees, of which more are Gen Zs. And the way, see, the thought, the very thought of managing them itself is kind of a death, if you ask me.
Scary.
And
We don't know their expectations, anticipations, their unpredictability.
absolutely,
It does
right.
make us wonder, are we leading them right? Yeah.
Yeah,
It makes us question our own abilities. Spot on.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many times I feel they drive us more than we driving them.
Yeah.
They change the way we think, that they change the whole path of the strategy that we put in place.
Absolutely.
And then I think even because of this huge number of employees reporting to me, we are trying to bring up leaders, and nobody wants to be a leader because they know they're going to manage Gen
For
Zs. And
everyone, that seems like a death trap. I don't want to be doing that.
yeah, absolutely.
And I know of people who choose to grow laterally, who choose to grow as a subject matter expert, avoid growing vertically and managing people for the exact same reason you mentioned, Varghese, that I don't want to get into the arguments, I don't want to get into the politics, I don't want to get into the hassle of trying to convince, trying to motivate. I have my own worries, and let's manage that well, manage my work well. Yeah. So yeah, managing people, Gen Zs, as you called out, could seem like the death trap that we are all trying to. Let's move on. What are we trying to do again and again? So what's the boulder in our life that we are constantly doing again and again? And probably we haven't thought of the outcome. We haven't. So all that we spoke about initially, right? What could God be wondering if he saw us do is, they are not thinking about the outcome. Why are they not exercising their choice? Why are they not trying anything different? So those were the things we thought God might probably be thinking. So what is that boulder we are trying to do repeatedly without focusing on the consequence or exercise? And it could look different to each one of us.
I would love to go first here. For me, like what Rashmi mentioned, I think for me, handling and leading well in my personal space is one big challenge for me, where I don't seem to learn anything. Whereas professionally, I'm happy, I'm growing, I'm doing everything, and I'm pretty content that with whatever I have right now. But yeah, that boulder is the personal dynamics, the personal choices that I make for me, my family, my personal spaces, where I don't seem to learn from my previous generation's mistakes and my own mistake. It has become like a inherited habit, where me as a woman, end up giving, overthinking, trying to solve the problems that are not even mine. Being into L&D space, I have at least pinpointed the problems that are not mine, and I've tried to give that away, but there's long way to go.
Their resonance comes. Yeah, I'll leave you with a thought, Ishita. I'll come back to you shortly. What is holding you back from making a different choice? Think through while we listen to others in terms of what's bolder in their lives, and then we'll come back. Yes,
I relate to Sisyphus a lot, actually, because every time I try to move forward in my professional life, something happens in life. It can be anything, it can be a family matter, or it can be a health concern, it can be anything, and then I go back again, and then I have to start all over again. So, this is something, my boulder here has kind of become my professional work, where I'm pushing it, trying my best to push it forward. I reach a particular point, and then something is going to happen, is going to roll back down, and then I start all over again. And it has happened multiple times, actually, not just once or twice. It has happened multiple times, with where I keep pushing it with all my hard work and zest, everything, but then it comes back.
Again, the question to you also, Akansha, what are the choices that you've not exercised or you've not thought about every time the boulder rolls back? Think about it, we'll come back. Who else is courageous enough to share what their boulder in life? Shobha, Indu?
I'm just reminded of a line that I read somewhere, especially after listening to all their stories. I think boulders have names, that those could be guilt, past experiences. But at the end of the day, to say it like that, I think the biggest obstacle between us and our growth is us.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that is lying between.
It's the power of choice. Yeah, I'm going to read out what Indu has put in the chat. Very many times the fear of success and abundance holds me back. I was hoping somebody would call it out, and I think I would agree to Indu, because that has been something that, oh my God, this is so big and so beautiful, I don't think I deserve it yet, has happened many times in life, and I've postponed decisions that I could have said a yes to year ago, year and a half ago. Somewhere in the previous years, maybe in childhood, it is fed into the brain that don't be extraordinary, just be normal enough. Yeah. And that's why many times, even if I don't know, I don't give my, yeah. If you're at least thinking about 200% Hindu, I have avoided saying, I don't think I'm ready yet. Let's just push it away. Thank you for bringing it to the bear and calling it out. So again, I'll leave you with that thought, Indu. What is the choice that we can make instead of fearing success? What is it that we can do? We'll go back to Ishita. Ishita, anything emerged for you? What choices? What a different choice could look like rather than pushing the boulder all over again back to the top?
Yes, when Asafri mentioned that it's our thought process that actually holds us back in most of the situation, I completely resonated with it. And yes, that is one of the things we, so for generations, we all have been trapped in some mode of overgiving, overthinking, overproviding, that it doesn't look normal to go past it. Even if I, in my head, I'm preparing myself to go past it, but there are other people around you who will think, oh my God, what have you done? What are you doing? This is not okay. This is not right. And that's where you give it a second thought. Am I doing it right? Am I doing too much? Honestly, I have always believed from the time I've realized that this is one space that needs improvement for me. I've always believed that it will take, I will do to maybe a 10% that I will try to change a few things, but then it will take a few more decades, a few more years to maybe change the patterns of thinking of gender-based roles to that extent. I am relating it to gender-based roles because that's my area of concern that I want to work on in my personal family logistics. But then, yeah, while we are happy doing it, but we should not be named to anything, is what I still feel. Best part is in today's generation, even the men of the house, the breadwinner of the house, even they are being mindful about it, that she is a human at the end of the day, not a goddess. And they have let go a lot of things, but I cannot explain who would have seen their mothers over providing, overthinking, to suddenly change overnight and say, okay, you don't do anything of any sort. I can't expect that godly behavior change from the men around me. When I say men around me, it is my better half, my father, everyone, my brothers, everyone. So it will take time, but yeah, change starts from me. Maybe when I start the change, the next generation will see it, witness it. Some people will be inspired, and then things will change.
May I share an observation here? You were willing to change when you got married, and it happened overnight. Somebody put the Mangal Sutra on, did the Sindoor, and you are expected to behave in a different way overnight. There was no practice. You couldn't have married 10 people and said, now I'm ready for the final marriage. There was no trial, test, pilot, but you still did it. Wondering where is the need for giving time now coming from that they would take time to overcome what they've been doing, behaving all.
That's a very nice thought. But with a marriage ceremony, there comes a lot of traditions or lot of practices which follows even after marriage, which kind of is supposed to make the transition easier. Though today's meaning is just changed, but it is ideally supposed to make the transition a little easier for the new member of the family. With that in mind, the thought process, the end thought is still there that this one is the new one. So this one is supposed to change, which also brings another thought in my head. When a child is born in a family, so a child is born in an Ambani family also. A child is born in a labor tent also, where in a construction site. And one day I witnessed, standing on my balcony, a child was crawling. A baby was crawling. He couldn't stand. Was crawling on. रोड़ी बोलते हैं हिंदी में, I don't know what is it called, small chips, gravel chips. And I was like, oh my God, the knees will get hurt for the baby. They have very soft skin. And the baby was fine, literally happy, smiling, playing with the other children, while the mother and the father were working as a labor in the construction site, which also made me feel how resilient the children are. They don't know what better is available for them. They don't want that better. They only want what they have, and they want their freedom. They want to explore the world. This actually gave, I understood this perspective after my daughter was born. She doesn't know. So she was born during the lockdown, and I was very worried. In which world am I bringing my child in? That time, that was the mindset with all the things happening around. But later I realized this is the world that she has seen. She hasn't seen anything better, where every weekend the whole family comes to one house to see the child, to celebrate something. Some win, something, the family comes over. And all the ladies are in the kitchen cooking together. I mean, 5 ladies एक ही kitchen में घुस के they are cooking something for 20 people. And there is no facility of getting the food from outside, because nobody will like it. Our mothers have seen that life, and they were very happy. Okay? It was so nice. No, we all sat together. In fact, there's a movie on this, a very short film, Juice karke, where similar dynamics have shown. But one woman came out, took a glass of juice, sit in front of all the men who were sitting with a glass in front of the cooler, and she sat in front of the cooler with a glass of juice. So, coming back to your question, yes. you, while we also try to bring that change, it's not a easy step to take. Preparing that other people around you that I am going to take this step, they will get startled, they will get surprised, and then it's like a small dose of things that I prefer to give people. First, a small change, next a little bigger one, and a bigger one, and a bigger one, till I'm happy that I know I won't be able to reach the level I want to reach, but something is better than nothing.
So you are making a choice. You are making the choice instead of a big bang. You are making the choice to introduce the change bit by piece by piece. Yeah. To me,
Yes.
it looks like you are crushing the boulder into smaller pieces and carrying them in bags. Upar.
Oh, yeah, that's nice thought. Yes, it's kind of like that. Yes.
Akanksha, what?
So, building to whatever has been said gave me a lot of time to reflect. I think the choice of saying no, that no, it's not possible. No, I am unable to do it. I think that is one thing that has held me back. And just to whatever has been discussed with Ishita right now, earlier women, like, our moms probably, they kind of, I think, had it easier that they were in the house.
Yeah.
Yes, this is my role and this is my responsibility. Whereas now we are expected to do everything in the house, and for the want of freedom, that I want to be financially independent, I want my financial freedom, I don't want to depend on my husband or my father, whatever it may be, or probably my son at an older age, I don't want to depend on somebody. We constantly make the choice of working outside, and hence having to work in both these places equally, with equal amount of love for your work, love for your family. All of that is what creates this cycle of constantly trying to push the boulder. With every decision that you make, with everything that you do, you're constantly trying to push the boulder up,
Yeah.
only to realize that no, something has been left behind, so I need to go back down and again bring that up as well. So
It's a
I think
lovely
that is
point
there.
to bring up. A lot of women do make the choice of pushing the boulder, which was given to them, and carry another boulder on the back that they choose, not letting go either.
So this, where you said this, right? That when you got married, in one day everything changed, and nobody trained you for that. You come from a very different family where you've been brought up in a very, very different environment, and you go to a different family where probably the norms and everything is completely different. And like when we are in companies, right? There's a probation period. I think that should that should actually be valid.
Marriage. I love the idea.
That should actually be there.
If we did
That,
not
there's
perform well, consequences.
please go. It's okay. You can go. It's fine. It's not a good fit, because when you're in a company and you are, let's say for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, there's a probation period where you're trying to understand the company is trying to understand you. And if it does not work out for either of them,
Yeah.
you're not the right fit. That concept should definitely be there in a marriage as well. And I don't mean marriage only with your husband. When you're actually getting married, you're getting married to his entire family. He is getting married to your entire family.
Yeah.
It's not a one-way street. And it is equally difficult for men as well.
I am sure.
It is very
Driving that
difficult for them.
right balance between what the mom who's brought him up all these years versus somebody new who is demanding an equal amount of time, energy, attention. How do they create that balance? Thank you for calling it out, Akansha, that it's tough for both. It's not
It's tough for
tough for both,
definitely.
and there's acknowledgement there. What other thoughts are emerging for people on what's your boulder, what's holding you back from making a difference? Varghese, Aditya, love to hear from you. What are you thinking right
For me, I think if you ask me, it's the failure for everything that you do as leaders. Because many times I think as leaders, we think we shouldn't fail because you have a big team you're managing. And then if you fail, the very thought of what will they think, what will the others think about you, and then you might be disrespected as a leader, not as an individual for sure.
Yeah.
So that very thought, I think it's in the Indian system, if you ask me, because many times when I work with the Indian people and the US people, it's very different concept, right? They don't worry about failures. They are brought up that way. And I was listening to Ishita as she was talking about how as kids you are brought up, right? Because if my background is I was brought up in an orphanage, there I was always put down, right? Put down as in you have nobody, you have just have to do. So we did all labor work at a very young age in that orphanage and stuff. But one thing I took positives out of it, right? You can also look at the other side of it, saying, okay, I was not treated well, I was bad, this and all that stuff. But because if I look at it, many kids were there part of that orphanage, and many are not in a successful career when I compare to myself. Thanking God for it, not for on my own. But what I'm saying is always look at the other side of it, right? And every leader, when I talk to my team also, every leader has something good also. Because I remember yesterday also, I'm just taking this example, right? Yesterday I was, as leaders, we were trying to create org change in our team and bringing new leaders. And suddenly one of the female employee called me and said, "Why did you move out of me out of your org and move me to another manager?" And I asked why. Why would you say that? And that employee said, because I already heard very negative about that person, so I don't want to report to that person and all that. I said, see, every leader, including me, right? We have negatives and positives. And as individual, you take the positive and you grow. Because I've had managers where I had challenges, but then I don't cry about it, right? Because it's a learning point. End of the day, as long as you're able to learn, I kind of feel you're successful. It doesn't matter what's the other things, right? So that is again, like I said, the failure of the thought of failure. What if I make this decision and it fails? Right. I had that experience. So I think that can be a boulder if you ask me most of my career.
Absolutely. And you brought in a very beautiful point about the power of choice, Varghese, that, we have to decide what we learn, what we take, what we extract from that. I'm going to share another very short story. While I was studying my TA in my second year, there was this story that I read about a very happy family, a husband and a wife, a twin two boys. And everything was going on fine until the husband passed away and the wife became a single mom and she had to deal with a lot to bring the two kids up. She would work harder, double harder, and she would earn money. She would also take care of the home. And tired, irritated, in all her fatigue, and when the children would trouble her, she would just scream back at them in frustration that, don't act crazy. You're going to end up in a mental asylum. Don't act crazy. You're going to end up in a mental asylum. So the children actually took that upon themselves to realize the verdict that the mother had given them. Yes, both of them did end up in a mental asylum. One of them as a patient, the other one as a doctor. So we do realize what we keep hearing, that we have to, but the choices we make to realize the same verdict can look very different. So both of them did end in the mental asylum. One went as a patient and one became a doctor. So that power of choice, I think since then I've believed in the power of choice a lot. Though I won't say I'm very good at exercising it. I still am. It's not a deliberate choice. I allow things to happen and flow. But totally agree, Varghese, that when we exercise the power to choose what works for us from the learn, I think we make better decisions. Just going back to the Sisyphus story, what comes to me is you don't redo things again and again. I think the next time you are doing it, you have more knowledge, you have more awareness. With that also, if you do the same thing again, then I think it's your fault. If you're not using and learning from what just happened, then you are redoing the same thing. But if you're applying that learning which you have always gathered and not doing anything about it, is where you become Sisyphus and keep moving things in that. Brilliant. Thank. Any other share before we move to the next piece of anything that came up for anyone you want to share, say, ask?
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Hello to all of you. And my name is Shobha, and I'm a soft skills trainer. And I was listening to the entire conversation. And what I think is individually, we play so many roles, a mother, sister, brother, whatever. But when you're given a position of a manager, I think that is where you need to use your versatility. Now, we think, I mean, this responsibility takes away so much of us that we fail to understand that we are not versatile. And so I think versatility is something we are brought up with and what we are born with. So I think that should be used even in the organization. The problem actually arises because we look at personal life differently and we look at professional life differently. We do not practice what we have learned at home at an organization, or the vice versa. So I think that is what we need to do. So what happens is once you start doing that, you will find that you are not a different person at home and a different person in the organization. So I think that is what we need to do. We need to be versatile, number one. And number two, we were talking about the daughter-in-law, the wife coming in. So that is somewhere we need to understand very clearly that, the daughter-in-law comes to the house, it is only to complete the circle and not as a substitute for your mother, for your sister, or substitute for anything else. Okay, we just come there to complete it. And I think both the parties need to understand that concept very clearly. So once we understand that we are there to complete something, life becomes whole.
Love
So,
that
like,
choice
little,
to say that I'm here to complete, not as a replace,
and
not as a substitute, not as a complement. Yeah.
not as a competition.
Brilliant.
Okay. So your mother still plays the same role she plays, your sister plays the same role. And there's a different role given to me, and that is the role I'm playing. But I'm not trying to take away somebody else's role and trying to play everything all by myself.
Thank you for that. Love the perspective that did acknowledge. I saw that what's coming.
That's a beautiful way to think about that. There are two different roles, and there is no comparison, no competition, and both, without both, it will not get complete.
Thanks for the share. All right, I'm going to take a little bit detour from the boulder now. We know Sisyphus was behaving very clever and trapped death. So where might you be using your cleverness to cope rather than pulling the courage to change? Where in your life, I hope I'm able to say that again, where in your life might you be using your cleverness, your sharpness to cope rather than the courage to change? Oh, Aditya has a beautiful comment. My mother has been managing both worlds first. Never have I ever asked how she's doing. Please do that, Aditya. After listening and understanding, I want to ask her. Wonderful. More power to you. Please do that. And thank you for the brilliant acknowledgement. Sometimes we forget these small things. Not forget. It doesn't come to us naturally, just having these conversations brings us back. All right, going back to our question, where are you using all your cleverness, cope, rather than pulling in the courage to change?
I think, like Sisyphus, he accepted his fate that this is what I'm supposed to do. And the philosopher that you mentioned, that he probably had a choice of saying, no, I cannot do it. What could have at max happened is that he would have been given a death sentence, that okay. And this was eventually going to come to him because that is why death had actually come. So this is the max that could have happened, nothing more. So when we come to this, rather than, like, if for me personally, rather than fearing the no, that what if I say no? What will happen if I say no? What will happen? Nothing will happen. It's just that, yeah, I'll not do it. Sorry, it's not working out. I'm not going to do it. But I am using my energy. Instead of wit here, I will use the word energy for myself. I am using my energy and I'm trying to wiggle my time here and there, running as fast as I can back home so that I can, get things done and I'm not given a look of the eye or, things like that. So just trying to wiggle my way, using my energy and time somewhere here and there, cutting corners so that, I can cope with the situation rather than saying that, no, this is what it is. Please accept it. Or if you cannot accept it, that's your, please deal with it, because nothing more
The
can be
fear
done
of
anyways.
consequence holding you back,
Yes.
doing the same thing again.
Yes.
Sabri, you look thought.
What she's saying is also resonating with me. The choice to say no when you want to say instead of saying yes. That is it.
Say no. Give me an example. The choice to say when you want to say.
For example, because every choice comes with a trade-off, and sometimes fearing of what you're letting go of, that could stop you from saying a no.
So the tendency is to then say yes.
Adding to what Asavri mentioned, sometimes it's, even if you want to say yes, sometimes it's a good idea to wait for others to, maybe thinking they're taking 10 more seconds more than to just say that yes, and allowing that time that yes, I am there as a backup for you, but if you want to raise your hand for anything, please do. And I've seen that work very well at my family front. I used to believe that I am the only one to take care of it, do it, and do the best way possible. From the time I've started delaying my yes, things have really, really worked well. Not that they don't want to help me, they respect me, they would love to give me time to just sit down, chill out, relax. It's just I never give them the opportunity to help me.
Or we didn't ask for it. What you just shared is that reminds me during COVID days when maids were all asked not to come. We were doing the jhadu, pocha, bartan, cooking, everything in our home. Somehow I assumed in the beginning that I'm supposed to be doing everything along with working online. And when you work online, I think you put in 120% because you don't want others to think, your managers to think that maybe she's not given her. So 120% at work and another 100% that I was not doing at all also on my plate. And I hate cooking and cleaning and doing things that I completely hate was also on my 3 days into that whole thing of, starting 5 in the morning till 11 in the evening, again starting 5 in the morning, got me so overwhelmed that one dinner I just laid the table and I started crying, literally crying. And everyone, all the three on the table were like, why are you crying? Give us a reason. And I didn't have a reason. Yeah. Once I settled, they all had food. And for the first time in 3 days, they appreciated the food that was made, So they were also trying to figure out what is it that we did not do? Did we not appreciate and stuff? And then I said, yeah, probably I need help. Yeah. And they were like, what kind of help? And then we made a roster chart where who would do sweeping what day, who would do utensil cleaning, who would do the cooking. So we rotated the roles. Then it was just 1/4 of the work that was needed to be done. And I think it's sometimes we don't ask, instead of crying, had I asked 3 days ago, I need help, when all that frustration was already building up, I think things would have been much better. I wouldn't have had to go through that frustration. Yeah. Thank you for that reminder. Yes, Asa.
Probably also what happens is maybe the people around us, they want to help, but we take it upon us to do everything.
Exactly.
So probably they'll ask us a couple of times and we'll be like, no, I'll do it. And then they also stop offering help. And then it eventually becomes overwhelming for us.
Yeah. And in my case, I didn't even ask for help, but you're absolutely true. There are times where people ask for help and we want to be that macho, that brave person. No, I can manage it all by myself. Very true. And I'm just thinking.
And sometimes you also just think that it is my responsibility. But who decided?
Responsibility. Yeah, it is my responsibility was the thing. I know. I need to do all of this. Being the woman of the house, it is all my responsibility was take. And nobody had the idea of what all had to be done, because we had help and support for everything. There was people who was doing jhadu pocha, there were people who were doing cooking, cleaning, watering plants also was outsourced. So everything was outsourced. So nobody had that realization of how much is actually required to be done. Yes, Ak.
I think the society has defined the gender roles so specifically, and it is ingrained in us so much that we just assume. Like, for example, it is just assumed that the man has to go out and has to work. It is absolutely okay if he chooses to, retire early and enjoy his life doing whatever he likes. It's absolutely fine. And it is absolutely okay to, hate cook for a woman. It is absolutely fine. But when you are sitting in a gathering, especially when after you are married and you're sitting with your in-laws and everyone, and if you say something like this that I don't like, you can see the shock on their face. What? How? Why? But that's okay. I mean, as a human, I don't like cooking. I'm not a foodie, so I don't like cooking. Probably a man who is a foodie loves cooking. And it's absolutely fine for that person as well.
Yeah.
So, just to what Asavri and you also mentioned, we are so stuck in our own thought process that this is right and this is wrong.
Absolutely.
We do not understand that.
Not just personal life and gender roles, but also roles that we play at the workplace.
Yes.
Managers should know everything. They are supposed to be doing A, B, C. They're supposed to be having all the answers. It's a huge expectation of the manager. The expectation of the roles defined of team members is managers will instruct and I will follow. Is again a role that gets defined. And I think you won't find any management book that has these definitions. Somewhere these have been cooked up and we are holding it close, and then we feel frustrated. As a team member, my manager is micromanaging, or as a manager, my team is not supporting, will happen. Totally agree.
Then there are so many reels that you see on social media, and it's a very common thing that we hear, that it's better to have a male manager than to have a female manager. Female managers are very strict, they are very stringent, they want things in a particular way, whereas male managers are more relaxed, they are more chill. So, they'll allow you freedom, which female managers do not allow you, things like that. And I feel that's not true for, like, the generalization that we've done is not true for everybody. It depends on the person. And the person can be of any gender. So things like this are definitely there.
So lots of generalization is happening in terms of the various roles we play. And that puts us under the pressure to keep moving up the boulder, up the hill again and again. This is what all managers do. This is what all mothers do. This is what all husbands do. So when we have those generalized role definitions, I think we are moving the boulder up again. We've been talking about the power of choice for a while. So I'm going to ask each one of you, welcome back, Buzz, welcome back. Yeah, I'm going to ask, for a boulder in your life today, what is a different choice you are going to make? So I'd love to hear, what is it that you've been doing so far and what do you intend to change going forward? It's okay. We can have another participant as long as she understands who Sisyphus is. Reflection, could it Sisyphus was rolling over the roll up just to see it roll down? Absolutely, Aditya. We will come to that in a short while. Such a brilliant reflection, because seeing was joyful. Absolutely, absolutely. Because, one of you mentioned maybe it is the comfort zone that keeps us held back in the safe space. So maybe Sisyphus was uncomfortable with the fact that if he really pushes the boulder over the top, what would happen next? What is behind that mountain? What is it that's not familiar to me? So the comfortable space to look busy but not have any outcomes is to allow the boulder to roll down and push it back. Brilliant perspective. We'll come to it shortly and discuss. Thank you for bringing this. Do things within my zone comfort. Yeah, absolutely. Lovely, lovely awareness. Lovely awareness. If my question is not triggering thoughts, let's look at the perspective that Aditya has brought. What is keeping us in the comfort zone? And hence we are doing the same thing again and again. And what needs to happen to move into a learning zone and push the boulder over? I can share a story. My son was in 8th grade when COVID happened. He was a cricket fan and he was playing very well. He was about to play under 16 and all of that. And of course, COVID happened. We didn't allow him to go to practice and stuff. So he still blames me for him not having had the opportunity to play under 16, under 18. But because, he was not getting what he wanted in life, which was playing cricket, he wasn't focusing on studies either. And of course, COVID and schooling from home and online classes were not helping. So I could see his grade drastically decrease. And being the stickler mom I am, I would, constantly be behind him. What happened? Why aren't you studying? I haven't seen you studying today. When is your next test? When are the unit tests happening? So there used to be constant, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And only to realize that every time I pushed him harder, he would push harder back to say, for him, everything became, because you're not allowing me to play, I don't feel like doing anything else. So that used to be his constant pushback. Of course, his 8th grade marks were very poor. He did pass, but barely pass. 9th, almost half of it went like that. And then that's when I realized that, my approach of constantly asking him to study and at least 2 hours in a day and this thing and that thing is not working. And by then the second wave had hit and, things were even tighter in terms of what is possible, and even walk on the ground floor was restricted only to a certain area, and all of that had already started happening. So I changed my approach a little bit. I said, what, you decide what you want to do in the career. If you want to check if your classes are happening, go. All I want is, I want my son alive at the end of it, and I want to see him do well. The choice is yours. Do whatever you. He didn't go for coaching because, one, the classes were not happening, and even when they started, by the time he was already in 10th, the classes had started, but he didn't go saying that, I want to focus. He very clearly announced, I will get 75%. Don't ask me to go to tuitions. I don't want to get 95% because I don't want to become a doctor, engineer. That's not my aim. I know what I want to do. And he had his things cleared out. I think when I gave him that choice, things just turned. I didn't have to check on him. He would exactly say, I would get 69-ish marks, and that's exactly what he would get. To that precision, he would actually know how well or not well he's done. And and he's doing very well. Of course, cricket is only a passion now, not a career, which was one of the options when he thought. And I know I'll be blamed for it all the life, but I'm willing to take on. I still wanted my son alive. Yes, sir.
I think sometimes what keeps us in our comfort zone is superiority complex. That, this is what I know already. So I feel like I'm superior in this area. And that is why I want to be there. That, yes, this is nice. I can do this also. I can do that also. I am hustling all the time, things like that. So like, sense of superiority that yes, I can manage everything. I can do this also. I can do that also. And I have abundance of energy. I have abundance of time. I can do everything is what lands up in this boulder situation.
Yeah, I've been there, I've done that. But unfortunately, the context of the other person may be different. So your expertise worked for you, you've learned wonderful, but the scenario, the context that the other person is experiencing may not be the same. What worked for you may not work for the other. Yes,
I think when we are trying to, a comfort zone means that we are in a space where we are not fearing a lot, and trying something new involves those jitters. So probably not trying to get everything right in the first go, but taking small steps to it so that the stakes are also low and you are also gradually just easing out into a newer zone.
That strategy of breaking the boulder, huh? Yeah.
I'm just wondering if just pushing the boulder down would be easier or carrying it and then throwing the bag would be easier.
And just a thought that came to me was, after a few times, at least Sisyphus would have realized that he's doing or not doing something when he's nearing the top, because of which the boulder is rolling down. Did he not try anything to prevent the boulder from rolling down? Seeing some thoughtful nod. I don't know what they mean, but if there is anything that's
What if he could have rolled up and then put it on the other side of the hill, and then so that it moves ahead, not come back in the same place?
Come back same.
Mm-hmm.
True. I think that's what we were discussing, right? The fear of what's on the other side of the mountain. Yeah. That staying in the comfort zone. This terrain is familiar, this slope is familiar, and I have to show that I'm busy. So let me keep doing the same thing. There is this quote by Shiv, if you keep doing the same thing, don't expect results. Only when you try something different can you hope for a different. So maybe he had given up on a different result at all, and hence he was very comfortable doing it all over again and again, saying that, no, this is good in comfort.
I personally don't stay in a comfort zone very often, and it is a very conscious effort that I have to make, or a conscious choice I have to make. I will stay in this comfort zone for some peace of mind. It's very human to choose that, and within that comfort zone, I have realized sometimes this comfort zone also gives new ideas to think, new ways to move ahead, because your brain has now time to think, plan ahead, and look at the bigger picture and everything. So, actually, comfort zones are not really bad, but staying there for a longer time is not the best thing to do.
The best. Yeah.
Staying curious is one of the best ways that has worked for me to come out of comfort zones very easily.
I think because of his wit is where he trapped them, and the gods viewed his wit as that, okay, yes, you're witty, but defiance is not something that we're going to accept. And it was probably ingrained in his head that now you cannot be clever anymore. So he was not thinking.
Yeah, the shock of failure, the shock of the consequences rendered him, incapable of thinking clever. And wow. And I've been there when I've really tried to be smart and clever, and the outcome is, something that shocks me. It's a very long period before I can think clearly again, and I'll go back into that shell and just allow things to happen the way they are happening. Though I'm not happy in that space, but then that whole feeling of, oh, my smartness didn't work here, so maybe I'm not smart enough, holds you back. Thank you.
Shanti, one thought from my side. As leaders, many times we tend not to learn from others, right? Especially, I just take an example, since many are giving family examples, right? At home also, right? You learn a lot from your kids these days, especially these days, the way they interact, the way they do things. You tend to change your strategy also. Maybe even before your child is born. I have a son who's 11 years old. I learn a lot from him, and I keep appreciating him also, saying, but he says, no, but only big people can teach small children. How can small children teach big people? You understand? I don't know where he learned that from. Hopefully not from school, but for sure we didn't teach him. But I'm saying, right, it's the same in the organizations, in corporate life also. I think which I have I have seen where leaders, when you suggest them something, they immediately push back, right? And that is something which all the leaders do, if you ask me, right? And but I keep telling my team, tell me also, when I give them feedback during my one-on-ones, I say, I'm giving you feedback so that you grow. Now you need to give me feedback so that I grow, right? And many are hesitant to give, because thinking that because their past experience may have put them in that position. If I give him a feedback, he might touch my performance and put me down. Right? That thought is there. And they keep telling, no, sir, you're good, everything. And I said, no, it cannot be, right? I cannot be a perfect manager. So that very thought, no, of, I think as leaders, which I feel could be a boulder or could be a hindrance for their own growth, right?
So there is no growth beyond perfection. And if the team feels you are perfect, or if the team is scared to give you feedback, I think you are nurturing a boulder. Spot on. Yeah, Ishita.
So this is one thing that I read in one of the books by some McKinsey employees. I don't remember the name of the book. Anyway, so this book talks about the difficulty that senior leadership people face usually. There's barely anybody to give them any feedback. They know that there are areas of improvement, but there is nobody. Well, that's where there were two ways to counter these things: asking the right question, more precise question. Do you think I could have done it this way or that way? Or even more precise, like, what is that one thing that you want to change right now with my style of work, with my, at least they have the it's not asking for a negative feedback, but it is asking for the truth. And there is nobody is worried that they will be judged on what they will say. There's another way to counter this, which was mentioned in the book, was first was asking better question, more precise question, open-ended question. The second was having a peer group who are absolutely genuine and actually care for you, like the radical candle wala care. That should include some family members also, who don't mind telling you the truth, what actually you are, even at home. Because because many parts of our leadership are also reflected at home too. So see, these are two of the best ways to counter and get the right feedback. I have also noticed asking multiple feedbacks from one person or your targeted people also helps. It maybe some people would give you, no, it was good, all fine, accept it, go back again, until you hear what you really wanted to hear. That also works very well.
Absolutely, Shita. And what I've learned is, if you ask as a leader, you ask your team, how are things? The answer is always there. I think the art is in framing the question, where can we improve, is what will actually trigger some thoughts. Otherwise, it's that safe zone. What if I tell my manager that you're not doing great in these spaces? Will hold. Abja?
So on this feedback, I'm reminded of my teaching days where I, after every session, would ask my students to give me feedback as to, how can I do better? And as you said, ma'am, it was always like, no, ma'am, everything is good. You're teaching fine, no problem. I said, okay, why don't we make it anonymous? You don't tell it out to me, you write it. Now, kids being very smart, they said that, but our handwritings, so you'll understand who's written it. I was like, yeah, that is true. So then they told me that, why don't we do this, ma'am? We'll type it out and then we'll give you chits of the typed thing. I was like, yeah, that works. So they themselves came up with a solution also, that, the fear of me recognizing whose handwriting it is, because I'm checking their papers and everything. So they themselves came up with a solution that, why don't we just type it out, take a printout, and then we'll give it, so that you don't know who it is. I was like, yeah, works. That works for me.
I'm just thinking aloud here. From childhood itself, we are creating that environment that lacks psychological safety. If I share something and I am identifiable, I'm worried about the consequence. I'm sure that translates to the workplace also.
Definitely.
If I share something where I am identifiable, then it will have consequence. And it's for the leaders to make it safe for people. I'm wondering if anonymous feedback is the only way to make it safe. Any ideas on how else can leaders make it safe? Because anonymous is also stemming from fear. I'm still worried that the fear is not gone away. The fear of consequences is still there. We found a solution, a working solution. The leader gets to improve, gets to hear feedback, but the fear has not been addressed. Anything we can do there?
Yeah, for me, I think what I practice, there is no one solution for all, right? Whenever I take up new team members or something, I try and get to know them personally, which is what I prefer, because then you as a leader change your leadership styles, because there are different leadership styles, right? Servant, that, this, and kind of thing. So you change your leadership style according to the individual, if you ask me, right? Because there are some people who maybe are brought up in a fearful environment. Some maybe would have brought up in a very lavish life, don't care about life. So there is, if you have a same solution for all, some will fail, right? So I look at it, say for example, try and understand from that individual what exactly is his or her fear, right? To give back feedback. Maybe a new Gen Z, right? They will say, no, sir, we had a very bad teacher. Whenever we gave feedback to that teacher, teacher scolded us and complained about us. And even when I was not part of that problem, she put me into that problem. And then I had this thought and I said, no, I'm not going to get into this. So I'm afraid, sir, to express my views. Okay. Then US leaders start having a different strategy for that particular employer. Right? Some may be like, sir, I don't care. You are good or bad, doesn't matter. When I don't like, I will move on. So then have a different approach. So I don't know if one solution is applicable for all, but then that's my thought, Shanti.
Thank you for the share. I think we have to try different things to figure out what works for each of our team members to feel safe. Yeah, thank you.
So I was leading a team some time ago where a few of the team members, we had a big language problem. The languages I am fluent with, they are okay with the language, they can understand, but they can't handle that language fluently. And that was the biggest challenge I was facing, to communicate clearly. I tried help asking them to repeat, even that looked like something very authoritative, although the intent was just to help me understand if you understood it right or not. So I tried multiple ways. One of the ways that really triggered some openness was me as a team lead, showing my vulnerability, that I am wrong, I could be wrong, I'm not make mistakes. This was the mistake where I learned this. This was the mistake where I learned this, and sharing it openly within the set of people that I want openness with. It took some time, but it actually opened up those people to a little bit. So they started with sharing a little bit about their families, then started openly talking about the team dynamics, and eventually it was very less of verbal communication, or the challenge wasn't the language problem. I will speak, and the other team member, that team member would know what I would be talking to her about, and that made life easy for, I'm sure, for me for sure, but then for that person too, I guess.
Just the thought that my leader is not the perfect leader and has scope for improvement, and I can contribute to that, gives that authority and power to the team member to voice out their opinions. Thank Akan.
Many times it does happen. It's more than safety, it's about the love that they have for the person who's there. And when I'm saying this, I'm talking of my role as a teacher when I was there, because the kind of love that I have experienced from my students is not something that I will ever experience in my corporate life, to be very honest. The kind of love that your students give you is not comparable with anything.
Agreed.
So that would hold them back, that ma'am will feel bad, I don't want to hurt her. If I say something, I don't want to hurt her, because she's so nice to us, she's fun and everything, so they don't want to hurt me in any way. So that also holds them back, the fear of hurting the person whom you're giving feedback.
So hear that. It is so contradictory, that because you don't want to hurt, you're holding back feedback for the person that you love so much and who can actually use the feedback to grow. Such a contrasting. Yeah. One question. In the Sisyphus story, who is the villain? The god, Sisyphus, the boulder, the slope? Who's the villain?
I would say Sisyphus himself. If he wanted to change something, he had to do something. He chose not to do anything else. So the results were just the same. That reminds me of a very famous quote, and I live by it: mind matters most. If a mind decides to do something, everything else will fall in place. You will feel that way.
Figure out alternatives that work for you to make progress.
I think his ego and the fear of failure.
Once again, his
Ego
ego, yeah,
and the fear of failure.
fear of failure. So again, it is Sisyphus, but the fear of failure. Can I push the boulder across, or to make a different choice that moves him out of the comfort zone? One, and ego. I'm so smart, I'm so clever that I can even capture depth. I have the power to not nature take its own course. Nobody wants to blame the gods who gave him this punishment. Nobody wants to blame the slope.
Ma'am, this is Aditya. So
Yes,
yes, ma'am. So if we start blaming the external factors, then we will never be able to progress.
Lovely.
So
Thank you
so
for calling it out. That's what I was looking for. That, those are things that the slope, the boulder already existed. Yeah. And blaming them is not going to move us forward. or not allow us any progress. Very well said, Aditya. Thank you for calling it up. So let's reflect back in our leadership journeys. What are the constants, things that we can't change? It could be people, it could be processes and policy, it could be roles and responsibility, it could be the need of the hour, the geopolitical situation, the demands of the market. Anything that you think is a given will not change for you as you show up as a leader. Take 2 minutes, and if you're done noting all your given, think about at least one boulder you're working with today, one thing that you constantly doing day after day, week after week, and has not even actually so many, gosh, so many boulders. And now, knowing that you've been doing something repeatedly, what decision or a different choice are you going to make today? Try something new, to risk something, to welcome failure and learn, or just experiment, curious, any of it, what are you going to try differently given all the givens, things that's not in your control, that won't change, and for that specific boulder. And we'll do a quick share what you, and anyone using courage over comfort zone can start share.
I choose to go first then.
Wonderful. Brave Ishita, go ahead.
Yeah, it took me some time to make my background silent first before unmuting. My constant remains as my resilience, my power of imagination and flexibility. The biggest boulder is my own self, where I love learn new things, explore new things, but I have never explored, or I am not good in exploring how it translates to any benefits for me. The knowledge itself is good enough. I mean, today's days, good to have knowledge, but it needs to translate to some outcome. Yeah, I haven't been doing that for a really, really long time. And I want to take the choice that I make is I want to take little bigger risks to see how it lands. Doesn't land. Nothing. Luckily, we live in a civilized world, and my mistakes will not kill me. There won't be any death sentence until it's illegal. So, I want to take a little bigger leap, take a bigger risk than my appetite, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, the bigger the risk, bigger the learn. Wishing you all the best. We have another courageous person put her hand up. Go ahead.
So my constants would be again similar to Ishita. It was energy, resilience, a never giving up attitude, and my husband. These would be my constant. And the boulder, as Ishita said, was again the same. It was myself, where I think I should not take myself too seriously. It's okay, life happens, can't do much about it. And to have an attitude, I think what I would like to do differently is to have an attitude that it's not the end of the world. It's okay. I can, even though it is similar to Sisyphus, that yes, it's okay, I will get back up and I will try and push the boulder again up, and then hope that yes, this time is going to yield a very different result.
Remember, I had mentioned about that person who had done a little bit of a different research, Albert Camus or something. That was his view, that maybe perhaps it's not a punishment at all. Perhaps the real question was whether Sisyphus could choose a response, or that, it is a pattern, that inevitability becomes a pattern. And he is actually being resilient by doing this over and over and over again. Yeah. And if that is the interpretation that gives you comfort, absolutely. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I resonate with all the constants here. Even for me, it would be resilience. And the first instinct is to find a solution instead of the immediate reaction can be getting a little bogged down by the problem. But then the next step is, what is the best that can be done? What's the solution? Let's work on. Second would be saying no instead of yes. And how would I do that? By probably having my anchors in place, the parameters on the basis of which I make those decisions, instead of worrying about what happens, the consequences. Probably in the personal space, it could be our energy, self-care. That is the primary driver, and probably the decisions will revolve around that instead of worrying ki log kya kahen.
Brilliant. And I just want to leave you with a little bit of food for thought. Whenever you are saying no to something, the words may be a no, but you're actually saying yes to something else. So when you
Right.
say, I cannot take on this project, probably you are saying yes to a bit more family time or time for your passion. No? So remember that a no may sound like a no, but internally there is a yes to something else. So there is always a yes. And the more you say yes to what is truly meaningful to you, the no will not be painful.
And remember,
anyone else? Not, we can close here. I will request you to please share any thoughts, any comments. Please provide us feedback in terms of how did you experience the session? What would you like differently from next time onward? Is there a story that you would want to dissect like we dissected Sisyphus' story? Anything else that you would like to do? Happy to hear on anything. Please feel free to share that. That you're giving me the sense of perfection. No feedback. Thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you. Any story you would want to recommend, suggest for next time?
Hi, Shanti. Indu here.
Yeah, Indu.
Wanted to say thank you for keeping it in the morning hours, because afternoon hours becomes really busy and impossible to find time to spend for our own learning.
Wonderful. Ishita, my Sisyphus, decided to change it this time. We normally used to have it 3 to 5. She said, let's experiment it at 11 and see what happens. And thank you for that feedback, Indu.
Yeah, really thank you, Indu.
I'm hoping you've provided us feedback in terms of what the session is. Please scan the QR code. I'll stop sharing. If there are any thoughts or questions, we'll stay on for a minute. If not, wrap. Aditya, Varghese, you want to share?
No, I just want to thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the session. I think it was a different perspective which I have listened with the various participants here, which is good. And I think these sessions will only help as leaders, because many times these sessions don't happen.
Yeah.
So I think it is good for leaders also to come just talk it out. They say, I just give something different, right? Not something, nothing to do with corporate.
Yeah.
I go to a church and then we have something called Bob, which is BOB, Band of Brothers, we
Wow.
call, right? And that's because many times people say men cannot cry type, right? And we ourselves have our own problems. Who do we share it with? I know I'm married, if I share it, I don't share it my wife a lot of my problems, because I don't want her to get that burden. And I think as Bobs, what we do is we once in a month we meet, we share our problems. It could be any problem, anything, A to Z, any extent. We talk to our church pastor, and he gives a perception as to how we can overcome it, how do we run the family and all that stuff. I'm saying, right? So that I'm just aligning that with this leadership. Many times we as leaders kind of think we have nobody. We just have to do what our corporate or our leadership wants us to do. Deliverables, KPIs, run the show, ensure no escalations. If there are people issue, you solve it. We're like, we are overloaded, like Sisyphus. Carry that boulder, go up, come down, go up, come down, right? And I think these sessions will only help us to know, okay, there are others who share a similar story and hear their perception and learn from them, right? End of the day, I think these sessions only will help. And I'm happy I was part of it,
So
at least to this team. Thank you, ma'am.
And absolutely, that was the intent, to create an open space where people can share thoughts, ideas, perspectives. And the story is just to provoke those thoughts. We were very deliberate that we don't want any slides, we don't want any frameworks walking through, say this, do this. Be this. We just wanted a free flow discussion, and thank you for all the participation that we had. I thoroughly enjoyed, got lots of perspectives, made me reflect, despite having swammed in the whole Sisyphus story, chat GPTing, is this the right version? What other versions? So I think after all of that, it really made it worth being on this session. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.